Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Back to the Dugout on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network here on this Thursday afternoon. As always, I'm your host, Toby Schulman. We've got some more championship series recaps to do and a little bit more predicting for the rest of these ALCS and NLCS games. We're starting to see some storylines unfold here, and we may be seeing a Dodgers-Yankees World Series, which we alluded to kind of in the beginning of the year in the preseason, talking about how entertaining that would be for the fans. But I don't think a lot of people really thought that would be something that would have actually came true. I think a lot of people would have thought one of these teams would have choked by now, and now they look like they're both in the driver's seats to win their respective pennants and go to the World Series. So we could have a cross country World Series. As much as I personally want a Subway Series, I don't know if we're really going to be getting that. But we're going to be going over games 2 of the ALCS and game 3 from last night of the NLCS. Did I say ALDS? I meant ALCS, but we're going to be recapping those 2 games and then giving best bets for both of those games today. Doing final predictions for the rest of the ALCS and NLCS, and then that should take us to the end of the show. So we've got a lot to cover today, as we always do, but excited to get all into it. So just starting with ALCS game 2 here, because, I mean, looking at this game and looking at the game yesterday from the NLCS, I mean, that was a much better played game, even though the Mets obviously got shut out. This 6-3 game from the Yankees and the Guardians was one of the sloppiest games, if not the sloppiest game of the entire postseason, with 2 errors from the Guardians and a 6-3 win from the Yankees. Great win for the Yankees, but overall not how the Guardians wanted to play at all, whether that was offensively, defensively, or on the pitching side of things. It just wasn't a good game for the Guardians and did not set the tone very nicely for them heading back to Progressive Field today. So getting into the play-by-play recap of it in the top of the first, Garrett Cole, he would get Kwan to pop out to shortstop, got Kyle Manzardo to strike out swinging, and he got Jose Ramirez to fly out to right. So a quick inning for Garrett Cole there in terms of how long each of those at-bats were. I mean, the second 2 at-bats were 5 pitches, so he went 4 pitches, 5 pitches, and 5 pitches. So not a terrible inning for Garrett Cole at all, but a trend that a lot of people saw from this game was that Garrett Cole is far more erratic than he was, it seems like, the entire season. And it still seems like something's not really right with Garrett Cole. I don't know if something is wrong still, but he's not dominating at Yankee Stadium in the postseason, and that is a slight concern to me for when, they could be possibly playing for a World Series here in the near future. But, not obviously focusing on that right now, because there is 2 more wins to be had for the Yankees, hopefully here. But the bottom of the first, they got right on the scoreboard right away as Gleyber Torres doubled to left field. Soto would single, bringing Torres to third. And then on a routine pop-up to shortstop, Brian Rocchio, who's in all honesty been amazing for the Guardians this postseason, drops a very easy fly ball. The wind, whatever it was, the cold air, I mean, it's got to be the hardest conditions to catch a fly ball in a major league stadium, but you still should be catching that ball 10 times out of 10. The fact that that ball dropped ended up scoring a run, and the Yankees would end up, while not being able to put any more runs on the board, they still had a 1-0 lead at the end of the first because of a massive error here from Brian Rocchio. He would get it back slightly for himself. He would, try to put up some runs on the board for them. But ultimately, this was a huge blow. And I think this set the tone really early for the Guardians on the defensive end, because I think everybody just thought a little too much about each play that was coming to them. And we saw that another time in this game. But like I mentioned, the Yankees would not add any more runs in that inning. Tanner Bibee would work a pair of Ks with Austin Wells and Jazz Chisholm, and Stanton would foul out to right field. So they tried to get something else going. Stanton obviously put a ball in play there, but nothing to come of it, obviously. 1-0 lead for the Yankees after the first, and going into the top of the second, Josh Naylor would lead it off with a single to right. And we thought we'd see a little bit of rocking the baby action, but luckily a single limited us to just a tame Josh Naylor at first base, which I think everybody was pretty disappointed about, including myself, even though I do claim Yankee fandom. Lane Thomas would then fly out to center field. Will Brennan would strike out, and then Andres Gimenez would foul out to Anthony Rizzo. So a 1-0 inning, or a 1-0 game at the middle of the second inning. We get to the bottom of the second, where the Yankees would just plate more runs here. Anthony Volpe led it off with a single. Another single from Anthony Rizzo. That would move Anthony Volpe to third. And then Alex Verdugo would continue what has been a very productive postseason at home for him. And he'd double to left field, scoring Anthony Volpe and moving Anthony Rizzo to third. Gleyber Torres would pop out to first, so he's not able to bring in the run that way. And Soto intentionally walked for Aaron Judge, which was one of the craziest things that I have probably ever seen in my life watching baseball. To walk a generational hitter, to have an arguably even more generational hitter come up after him. The odds on that and the strategy behind that, I mean, I get it. Judge has not been himself in this postseason, but he got back on track with this game. And I mean, in all honesty, I probably would have taken my chances with Juan Soto because when Cade Smith would come in for Tanner Bybee here in the second inning, which, by the way, one of the most high leverage relievers in the entire game being used in the second inning tells you all you really need to know about where Stephen Vogt thinks he's at with this pitching staff. It's just not in a good place with the starting rotation. So he had to bring in arguably his best relief pitcher, not obviously his best bullpen arm, because let's be honest, I mean, Emmanuel Clase is by far the best arm in that pitching staff, but Cade Smith has been one of the best pitchers in this league by far this season. And to have him go up against Judge won the battle. You could argue with a sac fly. Obviously, not too much damage there for Cade Smith. I'm sure he was happy to walk away with just one run, but not a guy who typically gives up a lot of runs. So those were both I think pretty odd things to see from both fans' perspectives. You're seeing Cade Smith give up a run. You're seeing Judge actually play a run in the postseason. So that was pretty nice, I think, for both sides. Not a lot of damage came out of it for the Guardians fans, but for Yankee fans, they were still able to add some much needed insurance. And this run actually would help them. Obviously, the Guardians would score 3, and the Yankees would end up scoring 3 more runs. So that Aaron Judge sacrifice fly was definitely a huge turning point in this game, at least for padding an early lead. Moving into the top of the third, Bo Naylor would strike out to lead things off. Brian Rocchio would try and make up for that error. Like I mentioned, he would try and make up for it with a single. And then Stephen Kwan would walk, so Garrett Cole would start to see a little bit of trouble here. But Kyle Manzardo would foul out to third base, and Jose Ramirez would fly out to center field. So avoid some damage there in the third inning. You can see that he's not really locating very well at all here. A 4-pitch walk to Stephen Kwan, and then really got behind in the count to Kyle Manzardo as well. So got lucky that he was able to make him foul out. And then Jose Ramirez was honestly a pretty decent at bat. He got lucky that he didn't leave a cutter too far over the zone, or that Ramirez just didn't get all of that cutter that he did leave right down the middle. I think every Yankee fan kind of held their breath a little bit when that ball went up in the air. But moving to the Yankees in the bottom of the third, Cade Smith did his thing and got a 1-2-3 inning. Giancarlo Stanton grounded out. Jazz Chisholm would foul out the third, and then Anthony Volpe would strike out swinging. So Cade Smith continuing to show his dominance despite giving up a run in that second inning. Just did his job coming in for Stephen Vogt. That's what he's done all year. And I'm very excited to see Cade Smith play in the future if this is the last series that he will be playing this season. But moving to the top of the fourth, Garrett Cole still pitching in this case. Josh Naylor would again single to right to lead things off. Lane Thomas would then reach on an infield single. Josh Naylor would then advance to second. Will Brennan would then ground out to second. Thomas to second, and then Josh Naylor to third. And then Andres Jimenez would walk. David Fry would be pinch hit for Bo Naylor. Fry would then foul out to third, and then Brian Rocchio would strike out looking. So if he wanted to make up for his error there, he really could have with a big hit. If he was to swap out his single in the third for a or was that second or third? If you would have swapped that for a single maybe in the fourth, it would have made this a totally different game. But unfortunately, for his sake, he did not. Moving into the bottom of the fourth, another pitcher comes in for Cleveland to replace Cade Smith, so he's no longer pitching for them. Austin Hedges moved into the catcher role, and then Anthony Rizzo would ground out. Verdugo would strike out. Torres would actually single, so he continued what was a really productive day at the plate. And Soto would ground out to second base to end the inning, so no runs added for the Yankees. But they did get something going there with Gleyber Torres hitting a single. Again, I absolutely love what he's doing out of the leadoff spot. He's just totally taken a shine to that role, and it's been just wagon that we've been kind of riding here to take Gleyber Torres to get a hit and to just root for Torres overall offensively to put up some numbers, and he's been doing a great job of that. So moving to the top of the fifth, we saw Cole really start to struggle a lot more here, and this is where his outing would take a really bad turn. And while he only gave up one run, it didn't end up being that bad. It was not a characteristic Garrett Cole outing at all. It was very uncharacteristic. On the top of the fifth, Kwan would lead it off with a single. Manzardo would then single to right, and then Ramirez would walk, and then Josh Naylor would hit a sacrifice fly to right, which would score Stephen Kwan to make it a 3-1 game. Clay Holmes would then come in, and he would get Brennan to ground to a fielder's choice to first. Manzardo would score, making it a 3-2 game, but Jimenez would walk and then end up not advancing anywhere because Austin Hedges would strike out swinging and end the inning. So a big inning for the Guardians there to at least add 2 and then cut the deficit there to 1. I think getting Garrett Cole out there in the fifth was huge for them and very concerning for a lot of Yankee fans. But the Guardians' offense wasn't able to do much more after that. On the bottom of the fifth, Aaron Judge would fly out to center, Austin Wells would pop out to third, and then Stanton would pop out to shortstop. So a lot of fly balls, a lot of pop outs. The Yankees were still putting balls in play, and you could kind of tell that these guys were going to put up more runs just by the way that they were swinging the bat. They weren't missing the ball. They weren't swinging missing very often. You could kind of tell that they were going to put up more runs. And into the top of the sixth, Tim Hill would come in to pitch for the Yankees. Brian Rocchio would strike out swinging again. Stephen Kwan would line out to third, and then Kyle Manzardo would ground out to first base. So a quick 1-2-3 inning there for Tim Hill. Probably the best inning I've seen him pitch as a Yankee this year. In the bottom of the sixth, Sobrowski would pitch for Cleveland. Chisholm would actually double to left, so he finally got something going. It really seems like Jazz was just a dead bat at the plate. Hopefully, like Judge, this was something to get him going a little bit. Volpe would walk after the Chisholm double, and then in classic Yankee fashion, Chisholm would get picked off at second base, and then Anthony Rizzo would later double to right in that inning, and Volpe would actually end up scoring on an error from Will Brennan trying to field the ball off the right field, like foul wall. He just had a little bobble in his hand or something, took his eye off the ball. That allowed Volpe to get a couple extra steps and score very easily. And then Verdugo would fly out, and I believe Anthony Rizzo would also end up getting picked off on the bases or something like this of the sort. But John Sterling had that call. The Yankees run the bases like drunks. I thought that was a hilarious call to them. And I mean, it's in all honesty, it's 100% a fact. The base running's been just brutal all season, and you don't expect that from someone like Jazz at all. So not very good to see in a playoff game. If you were Yankee fans, there were a lot of sloppy things from both sides of these teams in this game. But in the top of the seventh, Jose Ramirez would ground out to third. Josh Naylor would then ground out to third as well. Tommy Kahnle would come in to relieve Tim Hill, and then he would walk Lane Thomas, but get Will Brennan to ground out to second. So avoids any damage there. Tim Hill with a phenomenal outing in this one, and same with Clay Holmes. Both of them just coming in and making up for a pretty lackluster start from Garrett Cole, which wasn't god-awful, but it just wasn't good enough. When you're talking Garrett Cole, you need Garrett Cole to be a lot better out there. You need him in the playoffs to go 7-8 innings, it feels like minimum, at least 6 innings minimum if we're being realistic. And that's just not what Garrett Cole's giving you at home. So it's really cool. It's really cool to just see the bullpen stepping up like this, especially guys like Clay Holmes, who, I mean, a lot of Yankee fans probably wouldn't have thought was going to be very good heading into the postseason. So everybody's taken a real shine of their role here, and it's paying dividends for the Yankees, even when they're not playing the best baseball IQ-wise. They're still putting together great outings on the mound, solid innings, great at-bats at the plate, and if only they could run the bases. But in the bottom of the seventh, Gaddis would come in and pitch for Cleveland. Gleyber Torres again would single to right field. Soto would then fly out to left, and then Aaron Judge finally broke open in this postseason with a 414-foot two-run home run to center field. This was huge for Aaron Judge. I mean, off the bat, you had to think that one was getting out. And he said the Ghosts were pulling it out to Monument Park, which I can't remember when the last time a Yankee said that. I saw it might have been Derek Jeter, but I don't know even if, in my lifetime, if that was something that Yankee players had ever mentioned. So that was really cool. And to see the turtlenecks too in October, just seems like the Yankees, especially this 2024 Yankees team, are starting to take more of a more traditional approach to everything, and they're really bringing back the history and taking this history and making it a part of just their team's persona as well. Really just emphasizing that, while we haven't won a World Series and we're not as dominant as Yankee clubs in the past, that we're still the Yankees and we're just as good this year, and we just might get it done. So I really like what they're doing. I love the at bats they're putting together, the pitching against the Guardians. It's all been really, really nice, besides obviously the base running. But Judge hopefully breaks out a little bit more in this series following that home run. That was really nice to see. Wells would end up lining out to right to end the inning, or before Stanton would ground out to short the end of the inning. But in the top of the eighth, the Guardians would get nothing. It would still be a 6-2 game. Jimenez would strike out swinging. Hedges would ground out to third. Rocchio would single again. So, I mean, you could decide whether or not he made up for that error. I still really don't think a pair of singles does anything for for that drop fly ball that really set the tone for the game, but Kwan would end up flying out to center to end the inning there. Bottom of the eighth, the Yankees would score no more runs. Obviously, the 6 runs was all that they got. Chisholm would ground out to second. Volpe would single to right. Rizzo struck out. Verdugo walked, and then Torres struck out looking. But when Torres is that productive, you can have an at bat where you strike out looking. I don't really mind. And it was, in all honesty, it was a really good pitch. It was an up and away sinker. I bet a good 60% of the league probably takes that pitch as well. But Luke Weaver would come in the ninth inning, and he would get Manzardo to lead off, lining out to left field. Jose Ramirez would get a garbage time home run, 365 footer to right field. Not really the biggest concern to the Yankees at the time. I think they still had the 3-run lead. He would get Josh Naylor to ground out to second, and he'd get Lane Thomas to ground out to third to end the game. So another great game from the New York Yankees there. Obviously, Clay Holmes will take the win. Tanner Bibee will take the loss for going 1.1 innings pitched. But a great game for New York, despite the base running errors that I keep emphasizing. They got 6 runs on 11 hits. Aaron Judge looks like he broke out slightly more. And I wanted to show kind of the more advanced numbers to this game. And I screen shared my my Guardians Yankees tab there from Baseball Savant, so we can kind of look at just where all the top players ranked in this game. And looking at it, obviously, Judge with a 111.3 exit velocity on that home run, 414-foot bomb there. Jazz Chisholm, 366 feet on that double. But you could see a lot of different Yankee names there recording high exit velocities in this game. You can't really say the same for the Guardians necessarily, but when you're looking at top pitch velocity, you would expect Cade Smith to probably be around there. And it's really just Garrett Cole and Clay Holmes, which is really cool. So, while Cade Smith generated some swing and misses, Cole still got 10 swing and misses. Wasn't a great outing from Garrett Cole at all. And that's pretty much the big stories of the underlying metrics there. But just thought it was interesting, all the guys that hit the ball extremely hard for the Yankees in that game too. But now we're moving on to the Dodgers and the Mets in Game 3, which was all the Dodgers. And I was on the Mets in this one. I shouldn't have been, but I was. And I really thought Luis Severino was going to go out there and deal today, or last night, I should say. But he really didn't. I thought Walker Buehler was going to be the one who would drop a dud last night, again, like he did against the Padres. But Buehler actually shoved and did some things that we've never seen him do before. So maybe he turned a page in this season for him. I have no idea. Hopefully, for his sake and the Dodgers' sake, he did, because the Dodgers could use any help that they can get out of the starting pitching department. But moving on to the play-by-play recap of this game, an 8-0 win for the Dodgers, shutting out the Mets. Winning pitcher was Michael Kopech, going an inning and striking out 1, not giving up a hit or a run. And the loss obviously went to Luis Severino, who now has a 1-1 postseason record in 2024. He went 4.2 innings pitched, 3 hits, 0 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, and 4 walks. So like Garrett Cole, just didn't have great command over the stuff, which is what Carlos Mendoza mentioned during the game. But moving to the play-by-play in the top of the first, this is a honestly very common occurrence to see Severino work a quick inning, and Ohtani would ground out, Betts would strike out, and then Freddie Freeman would strike out as well. And we see, I think he had like a 192 average against guys in the first inning or something. So Sevy in the first inning is just a dominant pitcher. And it really looked like he was just not really commanding his stuff the best. He got a one pitch AB from Shohei Ohtani, but didn't really command the four-seamer that well against Mookie Betts. And he did a little bit better against Freddie Freeman, but you could kind of tell the control was not 100% there to start. In the bottom of the first, Lindor would fly out, Vientos would strike out, Brandon Nimmo would then reach on an infield single to third, and then Pete Alonso would strike out swinging. So we obviously see that Walker Buehler's got that swing and miss stuff right away. After the first inning, it was pretty apparent where this game was kind of going to head. The Mets were just not really able to hit Walker Buehler at all. And the Dodgers, on the other hand, seemed to be seeing Severino pretty well, and he didn't seem to have it all there. In the top of the second, Max Muncy would lead off the inning with a walk. Teoscar Hernandez grounded into a fielder's choice to the catcher, but Muncy was safe at second on a throwing error by Francisco Alvarez, who, in all honesty, just continues to annoy me with how many just batters he leaves and runners he leaves on the bases every inning or every time he just gets up to the plate. It seems like, I mean, bases loaded and he comes up, he's not doing anything. A throwing error there. I mean, he's just not been very productive whatsoever, at all for these Mets teams in the postseason. But I mean, he's the guy they got to go with there. So I don't really know. If you're a Mets fan, I mean, let me know how you're feeling about Francisco Alvarez right now. I personally can't stand him. He's not uh, been productive at all, really, for this team, and throwing errors are not something that is going to help at all. So that was obviously not good for the Mets. Lux would then ground out to Luis Severino, and then Teoscar Hernandez would move to second. Muncy would move to third. Will Smith reached on an infield single to short. Muncy would then score, and then Teoscar would move to third. Edmund, a sacrifice fly to center field, would score Teoscar Hernandez. So a 2-0 game in the top of the second. We move to the bottom of the second. Starling Marte grounded out to second base. JD Martinez would walk. Jose Iglesias reached on an infield single to short, which cast our over, and Jose Iglesias over half a single. Tyrone Taylor actually had a really solid game in his own. He would walk in this at bat, but Francisco Alvarez would strike out looking, and then Lindor would strike out looking as well. So, or strike out swinging, I mean. But two huge strikeouts there for Walker Buehler to end that second inning. That really just kind of set the tone for me. I kind of really just knew at that point what was going to happen. I hope the Mets were able to put something together, but I mean, we've never seen Walker Buehler throw the pitches like he was throwing today. I mean, that was just absurd. Or last night, I don't know why I keep saying today, but top of the third, Severino still pitching for the Mets. Otani would walk, Betts would then walk as well. Freeman would fly out, and then Muncy would single to right, so that would load the bases for them, and then somehow Severino would get out of it. Teoscar would line out to third base, and Gavin Lux would ground out to Severino to end the inning. So he got lucky. That really could have been a bad inning. But this kind of made me feel a little bit better. Kind of like when Ranger Suarez was going through those jams in the NLDS. You were like, he's going to load up the bases, but if he's getting out of it, I mean, if you're on the Phillies that day, you can't really complain. You just hope that they get him out of there before the runs come in, which unfortunately is not what happened for the Mets in this game. In the bottom of the third, Vientos would lead it off with a single to right. Nimmo would line out to third. Alonso would then fly out to left field. Starling Marte would then get on base with a hit by pitch, and then JD Martinez would cap off the inning with a strikeout. So, again, they get a couple base runners, but nothing comes of it. That was just a theme for the Mets this entire game. In the top of the fourth, Sevy still pitching. Smith popped out to second base. Tommy Edman popped out to shortstop, and then Kike Hernandez would fly out to left field. So you see Kike Hernandez kind of foreshadowing something later in this game with him being able to get contact out there to the outfield. In the bottom of the fourth, Buehler's still dealing for the Dodgers at this point. He gets a 1-2-3 inning off of the Mets as Iglesias would line out to right field. Tyrone Taylor grounded out to short, and then Francisco Alvarez would strike out looking. In the top of the fifth, this is when Severino's outing would come to an end ultimately. Shohei Otani would fly out to right. Betts would ground out to shortstop. Freeman would single to center. And then after Max Muncy would walk, it's time for Reed Garrett to come in and relieve Luis Severino. He would get Teoscar Hernandez to strike out swinging to end the inning and to end any threat. So, I mean, after he came in, I felt pretty good about the Mets bullpen at least. And that would honestly be very short-lived. In the bottom of the fifth, another 1-2-3 inning as Michael Kopech comes in and he shuts down the Mets order. Takes the top of the order and goes 1-2-3. Francisco Lindor flies out to left. Vientos flies out to center. And then Nimmo would strike out looking. So a great inning to Michael Kopech, rightfully so, earning the win in that fifth inning. But in the top of the sixth, Reed Garrett still pitching for the Mets here, and Gavin Lux fouls out to Francisco Alvarez. Will Smith would line out to Pete Alonso, and Tommy Edman would single to right, and then All right. Hopefully that has gotten all figured out. Apparently we had some technical difficulties here with like the last 3 minutes of the first half of the hour. Hoping that's all good now. I think we're all set. At least on my phone end, it's coming up like my face is at least on. So I'm hoping we're good. If someone in the chat can just let me know if you can at least see and hear me, so I'm not just talking to myself. But all right, thank God we're good. So I didn't lose too much time, so we at least still are able to give our best bets for today. Um, Sorry, and my whole train of thought is just totally thrown off right now. Um, but we've got best bets to talk about today. Or ALCS game 3, NLCS game 4. So let's just get right into these bets. Shout out Christian first of all for letting me know how to fix this. I had no clue, so appreciate it, Christian. If you're watching, appreciate you. But moving into the best bets for the day, we've got Yankees at Guardians first. And I've decided to go with the over 7.5 for this because at plus 104 on FanDuel, if you can get on FanDuel, take this plus 104 over 7.5. I feel like the line, if you can move it down to 7 as well, I would totally do so. But if you take it on FanDuel, you'll get better value there, obviously. The Yankees money line to me just feels a little bit odd today. I don't love the Guardians with Matthew Boyd on the mound either. And I don't love Clark Schmidt's numbers against the Cleveland Guardians. So for that, I think the over is a good play. The line to me just feels a bit too small. And, I don't necessarily know if the Yankees are going to be able to pull out 3 wins in a row in the postseason here. But Matthew Boyd versus Clark Schmidt, again, both offenses have at least 850 OPSs against the starting pitchers, with the Guardians having great numbers against Clark Schmidt. He gave up 2 earned runs in his last start against Kansas City, and being on the road for this one could be due to give up some more earned runs. And with how good right-handed hitters in this lineup have been for the Yankees, like Gleyber Torres, Giancarlo Stanton, the pitching like Matthew Boyd could be in some trouble. The right-handed matchup against the left-handed pitcher may not go the best for Matthew Boyd out there today, but we'll just have to see. I think the over is a solid play there. The Yankees also made some lineup changes. They moved John Birdie in for Anthony Rizzo, I believe, and I think the other lineup change was drawing a blank. Jose Trevino for Austin Wells, but those should provide some good right-handed hitters as well. Birdie has been very solid, and he was solid in the ALDS, so I expect him to be solid in this game. But yeah, Trevino. Okay, I don't know why. Don't know. I haven't seen Trevino play in a while. It feels like so. Kind of drew a blank on that. I don't know. Just thrown off by all those technical issues that happened here in the middle part of the show. But moving on to Guardians player props, there's a few hitter props that I really, really like today. And we're going with one prop pick that we've kind of been tailing around this entire series. But we're starting off with one that we haven't used yet, which is Andres Gimenez to get over half a hit. I think this is a really good play today because in 10 at-bats against Schmidt, Gimenez has a 500 batting average and 1,100 OPS. He's got 5 hits, 1 double. Don't necessarily see this guy as a premier extra base hitter in the league, and I think that single you could probably get better value, but we're just going to stay put with the 1 hit here. I think Gimenez, he's was really good to end the Tigers series, and at the start of the ALCS, he was also very good, but looking to get back on track tonight against a pitcher who he historically does well against. So I think Gimenez is due for a hit today. Another guy I think is due for a hit, but not just a hit. I think he's due for a single. Stephen Kwan. In 8 at-bats against Clark Schmidt, he's got 4 hits, so a 500 batting average for him as well. He's got a pair of singles in this series already, and he's obviously just one of the best pure contact hitters in this league. There's way better value for him to take a single than just a straight-up hit. We're not in Yankee Stadium anymore, so I don't think the short porch really comes into play at all, obviously, and takes a home run away and instead of a single. But I think a single here is the best play. Is going to give us the best value for Kwan to record a hit today, at least at a realistic value, and I think that's the best way to go for our second prop for the Guardians today. But moving to the final Cleveland Guardians prop for this game, I've got Jose Ramirez over 1.5 total bases. he cleared it last time with that home run in garbage time. So I mean, he's hopefully is a little bit sparked after that. This is now a guy who's going to be playing on his home field. He's got great value here at nearly like plus 140 odds for this. In 9 at bats against Schmidt, Ramirez has 4 hits, 444 batting average, with one of those hits being a double. So I don't know if he's going to be able to leg out these extra base hits today, but if he's feeling hot at the plate, all we need is a couple of hits from him. So if he could get a hold of one again like he did against Luke Weaver, even if it's late in the game, we'll take it. In his Progressive Field homecoming, I just feel like J Ram is due for a day at the plate. I think that home run at the end of the game was a little bit of foreshadowing for maybe what the Yankees could come to expect here in the near future today. But for the Yankees side of things, on the player prop side, we've got Gleyber Torres over half a hit. Again, there's just better value here on FanDuel, I believe. So if you're in a state where that book is legal, they just seem to have better odds. Not great numbers against Boyd, but he's been just the catalyst of this New York City lineup. He looks like one of the 3 things that is like working right with this Yankee offense. I mean, Gleyber, Giancarlo, and I mean, really Soto. It's been them, and it looks like just one of 3 options when Gleyber's going up there leading off the game. It's either going to be a single, a double, or a walk, and he's just been very, very productive. Like I said, he's really taken a shine to this leadoff role, and in this postseason especially, he has undoubtedly earned himself a lot of money. So I think he's going to keep it going today. Like I said, with better value on FanDuel, take it there if you can. But I mean, the way he's playing, you can't deny that it's always a good pick at least to take Gleyber Torres to get a hit. Giancarlo Stanton over 0.5 hits, 0.5, 0.5. I don't even know what I'm saying. But Giancarlo Stanton to get over half a hit. Again, not great numbers against Matthew Boyd, but we're not concerned with that. He's been this guy really the entire postseason when it comes to just hitters in the middle of the lineup, and I feel like he's going to show up today against left-hander in Matthew Boyd. His first game since ALDS, game 1 where Stanton didn't record a hit. This is going to be a big bounce-back game for him, I feel like, and he seems to be a guy who steps up on the road a bunch and comes up with big hits. So, again, better value here on FanDuel. Still, if you don't have FanDuel, I would take it regardless. This, to me, is a good pick. And the last player prop from this game, we're going to go with Clark Schmidt over 1.5 earned runs. Given that he's coming off the injury still, I don't really like how low that this line is. He gave up 2 earned runs in his last start in the postseason against a Royals lineup that I think is far weaker than this Guardians one. With a hungry Guardians team down 2-0 coming back to home, Schmidt may be able to put together a better start than the ALDS, but I still think the Guardians find a way to plate a couple runs against him. They hit nearly 400 with a 395 batting average against Clark Schmidt. I don't know. I just think while he's a great pitcher this season, I think even still 2 runs is not a bad outing at all or a bad number to give up. So 2 earned runs, I think, is what Clark Schmidt's going to at least have today. And that's our last pick for this Yankees game. But in the NLCS, we've got to pivot to this one now. NLCS game 4, Dodgers at Mets. This one's been tough for me to predict the entire time. I've really not done the best with this series compared to the ALCS. I've done a lot better with that, but the NLCS has been a tough one to predict. We're not overthinking it anymore. I thought the Mets were going to pull one out with Sevy on the mound yesterday, and clearly me just trying to play the numbers there was just not the right play. Dodgers money line is the play today at minus 135. They just look too dominant right now. The pitching, the bats. I mean, the way that just the broadcast talks about the Dodgers, they're just a very cohesive unit right now. They go out to dinner together. They do everything together as a team, as players only. And that just seems like a unit who right now is too difficult to break up despite the power of friendship Mets, the 2023 Diamondback type Mets that we're seeing in this postseason. They're making it a good series sometimes, but I mean, after yesterday, it just doesn't feel like the Mets have much of a leg to stand on anymore. I don't think Quintana is going to put together much better of an outing than Luis Severino did, and yeah, I really just don't know. I think Yamamoto is going to come out and be great tonight. So ultimately, the gut feeling is the Dodgers on the money line to take the second game at Citi Field, and hopefully for their sake, they can end it there and not have to go back to LA and play any more games. But the Mets hitters have a sub 240 batting average against Yamamoto this season, and Dodgers hitters have a near 300 batting average and a near 850 OPS against Jose Quintana. Dodgers offense is alive and well, and the Mets may have just fallen flat yesterday. It only takes a couple games for you to get in a big enough hole offensively where you can, just end up falling through the cracks of the series and just not put together the hits that you need to win games. And that looks like maybe what's going on with the Mets right now. It looks like they just fell flat after last game. And Yamamoto is a very tough pitcher to have to go up and face when your offense has not been the very best. So Dodgers is alive. They're alive and well, and I just think they're going to take it today. In terms of just props, we went heavy on the Dodgers today because I don't really know how the Mets are going to fare against Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And that's our first prop. We're going with a plus odd prop here at plus 100, Yoshi Yamamoto to go over 13.5 outs. Mets hitters have a 238 average against him, like we said, sub 240, and a 606 OPS against Yamamoto. He struck out a third of his batters against the Mets with 7 strikeouts and 21 at-bats, and he went a very strong 5 innings, and arguably against a much better Padres offense in the NLDS. This is what they pay him the big money for. I think he's really going to excel, and I think he's really going to in a stadium that I think everybody there wanted him. I think there was the rumors that he was going to go to the Mets. This should be a very entertaining start from him, and I'm excited for it. Moving on, we've got Enrique Hernandez to record over half a hit at minus 140 odds. He has just been one of the best hitters on this Dodgers lineup the entire postseason. 16 at-bats against Quintana. He has a 250 batting average with 4 hits, 1 double, and 1 home run, and 3 RBIs. He's been on fire this postseason, like I already said. He's hitting for a slash line of 333, 364, 619, and a 983 OPS. He has 2 massive home runs for the Dodgers in this postseason, as we saw one last night, and he's coming off of a 2-hit night last night. So I think he's due to stay hot at the plate like he's done all postseason. Moving on to the last Dodgers prop. This one you can get pretty good value for it on Caesars with minus 139. It's Freddie Freeman over half a single. The way his ankle discomfort has been, I just don't feel like he's capable of legging out anything more than a single unless he hits the ball out. And I don't think the ankle provides him enough power to really drive one out. And Freeman's not really the biggest home run hitter to begin with. So I think a single is a great pick here. I think with a 313 batting average against Jose Quintana and 16 at-bats, mixed with that constant discomfort in the ankle, he's just not going to be able to leg out any extra base hits. And to add on to that, he's got no extra base hits in this postseason regardless. So I think Freddie Freeman gets a single tonight. He's a great hitter, and I think he will end up recording a hit today, but I don't think it will be anything more than a single. Moving on to the only Mets prop for today, while I think Jose Quintana won't have the best outing to his name, I think he'll still go over 14.5 outs, so I'm taking that as the sole Mets prop for today. After last night, Mendoza just needs a guy who can go out there and give him at least 5 to 6 innings, I feel like. I think they would have wanted Sevy to have given a little bit more than that, like maybe 6 innings, and he just wasn't able to do that. So now it's able, now you just got to flip that to Quintana. You need him to turn around and go give you a good outing now. And he has done that in the past. He's been able to go out there for 5 to 7 innings sometimes and give you a really solid outing. In the same regard, he can go that long and still lose this game to the Dodgers. So I don't mind taking the outs here. I think 5 innings is an extremely fair line for Quintana to go. I think at that point, it kind of just seems like the Dodgers lineup gets to the Mets pitching like the 3rd time through the order or so, which is kind of what I was talking about when I froze there. And Shohei added that 3-run homer, and Max Muncy added that solo homer at the end. Not sure if everybody heard that towards the end of the first half of the show, but yeah, that was a big part of the storyline in game 3 last night, was that just like the 3rd time through the order, these guys just seem to be so much better. But those are all the props for today's games, all the props, all the picks. We'll have that in a written article out for you guys, hopefully before this action gets underway. I'm just going to make sure, double check what time. So that Yankee game starts at 5, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to get a article out for those picks, but I'm going to try my hardest to do that here in the next couple of hours. But if not, I'll just throw something on Twitter so everybody can see where they are in one place. But finally, to end the show off, we're just going to be giving final predictions for the rest of the championship series. And starting with the ALCS, I think I'm going to stick with my Yankees in 5. I think the Guardians will honestly have a good shot at taking this game tonight, so I don't feel like the Yankees are going to sweep. But this game 3 is just massive. If they win it, I think they really can sweep. The bullpen's been amazing. I think if I said it before, if Luis Gil can get into a game 4 where they're up 3-0, I think it's not looking good for the Guardians. But if the Guardians win now, I don't know how much good that does for them, honestly. I don't trust Boyd, Cobb, or Bybee to go out there and get them wins. And at this point, the Yankees are going to get to like game 5, game 6 if it goes that far, and they're going to see these relievers too many times, and they're going to get to them. So I think the Yankees are going to win this one in 5 games at the most. And I think the same thing for the Dodgers. The Dodgers look like they are just way too dominant, and I said it already. But the starting pitching in this NLCS has just been fantastic. With Walker Buehler, Jack Flaherty spinning great gems. Everything seems to be clicking right now. The hitters at the top of the order are hitting. The guys at the bottom of the order are hitting. And Dave Roberts was really just the biggest question mark with this team. And it seems like he's managing this bullpen a lot better. Like I said, he's a big believer in that. The more you see a relief pitcher, the better you get against him, the more comfortable you get, the more well-adjusted you get. And it seems like he's just doing a totally better job than he was doing, at least in the NLDS. And I think he turned a page in it as a manager, hopefully, in this series. And I think the Dodgers just take it in 5. But if you're going to place a future, those are the 2 teams that I know you probably can't get great value for them, but I think that's going to be our World Series matchup here. I wish we could have a Subway Series, but I think the MLB is just going to want to do it for the Dodgers and the Yankees, and we'll get Shohei versus Judge in the World Series, which would honestly be a great thing to see. So I would never complain about that, but obviously the Yankee fan in me wants to see a Subway Series World Series, because if I could get back to New York somehow, that means I could possibly see double the games. But that's all I got for the show today. I again, am very sorry about the technical difficulties. I had just genuinely no idea those were occurring. Everything on my end seemed to be okay, but it happens. It's happened multiple times on this show. It's nothing new here on the Bleacher Brothers Sports Network, and it's nothing new really anywhere else. So we just roll with the punches here, as we always tend to do. But I at least am glad that we got somewhat of a second half in of this show to get some of these picks out, and we actually got a good amount of people watching towards the end here. So if you stayed through the technical difficulties and you stayed to get these picks, at least I appreciate it. I appreciate you staying for like 5 to 7 minutes in just dead air instead of just leaving and going somewhere else. But I appreciate it. And if you're watching the replay and you somehow managed to make it to this point, I appreciate it. But thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. I'll be back on Monday where we will talk about hopefully our World Series matchup. But you're watching Back to the Dugout. Stay tuned for Defoe's show here in an hour on License to Steal. And I'm Toby Schulman, and I will see you guys on Monday to hopefully talk some World Series baseball.